All right, we're live. Hello, hello. Welcome back. Episode 2. I made it. I did the first video. I uploaded it. It worked. That's cool. I didn't know exactly if it was going to, but here we are. We're back for episode 2. So thanks for watching if you're here. My name is Christian. And if you didn't see my very first video from 2 weeks ago, this is my YouTube channel that I'm making to talk about my reading adventures, just to kind of document what I'm doing. And I decided to call the channel The Endless TBR. I actually didn't even have an idea for like a channel name when I recorded my video last week. Once I uploaded the video, I was like, well, I gotta come up with a name for this thing. And I went with The Endless TBR because I felt like it pretty accurately summed up what's going on in my life when it comes to reading. I have a lot of books I want to read, not a lot of time, slowly working through it, so I felt like it reflected pretty good about that my reading journey that I'm going on. Right off the bat, I looked at last week's video, I took some notes, and the main note that I took for myself was to say less. Because I noticed last week, or 2 weeks ago, when I made it, I was saying every other word pretty much. So I'm hyper-focusing on that. Maybe as I start to go off on my tangent, I'm going to lose track of that. But that was the note I had for last week, was to say less, so that is my goal. But the point of this video is I'm just going to kind of update you guys on what I've been doing with reading. There's an right there. Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But I kind of highlighted in my last video what my TBR for May looked like. I had an Agatha Christie book. I had Deltora Quest that I was reading. I had a Star Wars book I wanted to read. Let's see, what else was there? Dune book. The next book in the Well of Ascension in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, and the next ACOTAR book, book number 3 for me, which was Wings and Ruin. I said last week that that was a pretty hefty reading goal for me. Usually when I look at my month ahead, I look for like 4, maybe 5 books. I was like, hey, you know what? First YouTube video, let's go crazy. 6 books, some of them pretty chunky. I'm both proud of myself and disappointed in myself with my progress so far, because I've read pretty well for what I normally do, but I'm nowhere near that goal I set for myself. I'm going to kind of go into like hyperdrive in this last week or so of May to try to catch up, but let me break down for you what I've done so far. All right, so first book I read, I did finish it. I was reading it in the middle of last video, and that was this one, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. One of my main reading goals that I have for myself is to try to read all of her Hercule Poirot books. I'm never going to say that right. It sounds really weird when I try to say it. But this was the third one that I've read. I have the other 2 that I read here. Murder on the Orient Express. Got that movie cover. I hate movie covers, but this is just the one I had picked up from like a Goodwill at some point. And then I read this one, which was the Mysterious Affair at Styles. I'm not going to do like a full review of all of these books because that would take really, really long time. But I will say that The Murder of Roger Ackroyd is 100% my favorite of the 3 so far. I loved it a lot. There's a good reason why this is at the number 1 on a lot of people's lists when they rank these books, and I absolutely adored it. I would say if I had to rank them right now, from least favorite to favorite, it would go Mysterious Affair at Styles, least favorite, and then Murder on the Orient Express, second favorite, and then Murder of Roger Ackroyd as my favorite. I would say the reason I like this one the most is the only struggle I've had with the Agatha Christie novels so far is there's a lot of characters, and I think it's just part of like that genre is the whodunit. You got to have a lot of people, a lot of different motives. I felt a little overwhelmed reading the other 2 books, trying to keep track of who was who. I think watching the movie of the Orient Express beforehand kind of helped me with that one a little bit. But when it came to reading The Mysterious Affair at Styles, I was like, oh crap, who are these people again? Like, I'm trying to keep track of who's who. This one, Murder of Roger Ackroyd, didn't feel like that at all. I loved the cast of characters, even though it was just as big. I felt like all of the characters were very well fleshed out, and yeah, I just didn't have any of those moments where I was like, wait, who is this again? Which made the story feel like it flowed a lot better. And I won't say anything about it, but the reveal at the end of who had done the murder, was not expecting that at all. Thought it was really cool. I can imagine back in the day when this book released, the audiences were like, what? You can do that? That's crazy. So I like that a lot. And I liked, in The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, I enjoyed the the main character a lot, like the narrator behind it. I remember this one, Mysterious Affair at Styles, was told from this guy named Hastings' perspective, and he was okay, but he was a little weird too. But the doctor, I'm just drawing a blank on his name right now, but the doctor who's telling this perspective, this story, I liked him a lot more. I thought he was a really cool character. So I finished that book. I finished Murder of Roger Ackroyd. The other book that I was reading at the time that I filmed my last video was this one, Deltora Quest. This was my nostalgia read of the month. Every month I'm going to try to pick a different book or series of books that are kind of like one of my favorites as a kid, and revisit it to see if it holds water. Now that I'm an adult, I'm 30 now, so it's been a lot of time since some of these books have passed in my life. But this was it. Deltora Quest, 8 books condensed into 1 volume, and oh my gosh, this is it. This is the childhood fantasy. If I think of peak childhood fantasy, this is it right here. I loved reading this. It was so nostalgic. It was everything I was hoping it would be. Sometimes you go back and you watch old movies, or you read old books, and you're like, man, I don't know why, like as an adult, it does not do well for me. I had a big example of that is Space Jam. I watched the OG Space Jam, and I was like, I did not care for it nearly as much. So I was a little more nervous going into reading this, because Deltora Quest for me, this was one of my first fantasy outings as a kid. I remember writing this down all the time as my favorite book series. Part of it was the awesome monsters on the cover of each of all the individual novels. I'm a little sad that I don't have the individual ones anymore. I had to buy this instead. But I would say this absolutely holds up, and I recommend anybody read Deltora Quest, whether you're a kid or an adult, or like if you have kids and you're trying to get your kids into fantasy. Deltora Quest is a great place to start. The things that I liked most about it, so obviously this is written for ages like 8 to 14. You're not going to have the same depth and character development that you might have in adult novels that are way more fleshed out, but the characters in this book were still wonderful, and I thought there were some really great lessons that Emily Rada tried to tackle in some of the individual books. And by the end, there was a clear, very strong development of each of the characters. And by the end of the story, I got a little emotional as I read about Leaf, Eric, and Leaf, Jasmine, and Barda. I don't know why I said Eric. I was thinking of Leif Erikson. Leaf, Jasmine, and Barda looking back on their journey and the things that they've overcome and the places they've gone to. And I got emotional reading it. It was very, very cool, very well done for a kid's novel. I said a lot of lessons. The land of Deltora feels really lived in. There's a lot of different biomes and cities and areas that the cast of characters go through, and every book felt very different. So I appreciated that a lot. It didn't feel like a watered down fantasy world. It felt very lived in and very diverse, which was cool. And my favorite thing about these books is there's some scary stuff in here, like characters like the Gluss and like the Shifting Sands were unsettling. Like even as an adult, I was reading about them like, man, that's crazy that those got into a kid's book. I appreciated that a lot because, they're in a dire situation in this book. The Shadow Lord has taken over the land. He's holding all of humanity hostage pretty much. And Rada doesn't shy away from those darker elements, which I really appreciated. And I thought was cool that would be in a kid's book like this, because it kind of sets kids up to experience other darker elements as they continue their reading journeys. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I did do a quick ranking on my phone here of my least favorite to favorite. I'll start off by saying all 8 of the Deltora Quest books, loved all of them, but just in case anybody has read them and is curious as to how I would rank them from least favorite to favorite, I did least favorite was number 1, The Forest of Silence, only because there's a lot of legwork that it had to do to set up everything, and then by the time we got to the actual Forest of Silence, it was like 20 pages or so, and I really wanted more. I really wanted more from that and the Guardian encounter. So luckily that was the first one, so kind of got it out of the way. I still liked it a lot. The world building that Rada has to do in such a short amount of time was impressive, but that was my least favorite because it felt like boom, boom, boom once they got into the journey. Next one was number 3, The City of Rats. Although there's a lesson that Jasmine learns in that book that I loved a lot, and it was a lesson about how people grow up in different scenarios and they see things through different lenses. I won't spoil anything about it in case you do want to read it, you haven't read it, but there's a great lesson there about how people have different perspectives and that's okay. And I appreciated that a lot. But the thing about number 3 that I didn't like as much was how quickly the Guardian encounter was over. It was once again, it was like boom, like over just like that. And for such an epic Guardian, I was like, oh, I wanted more. I wanted more from that. Then third least favorite was number 5, Dread Mountain. One thing I did like about that one though was Emily Rada did this thing in all of the books where she set up some sort of plot element at the beginning that's used later on to eventually achieve victory for our characters. In Dread Mountain, it is the spring water, the dreaming spring water, which I thought was just a really cool idea, and I loved seeing how it played out in the end. Once again, won't say anything. But I like that a lot. I thought that was my favorite element about that book. I like that. Fourth was number 2, The Lake of Tears. Enjoyed it a lot. Now we're getting into the ones where I'm like, I'm just gonna say I liked it a lot because it's true. So that was number 4. Number 5 was number 6, The Maze of the Beast. The Gluss as a Guardian. Crazy, terrifying, loved it, so cool. Then moving on to my third favorite was going to be The Shifting Sands. That one is because, well, 2 reasons, two fingers. The tournament at the beginning of it, I love anything to do with tournaments, so I thought that was really cool. And then the Guardian itself being the Shifting Sands, horrifying. Like from the insect creatures that live in the Shifting Sands to the idea of the hive itself. I loved all of that. So that the Guardian alone bumped that up to my top 3 for sure. Second favorite Deltora Quest book was number 7, The Valley of the Lost. I loved the Guardian. That's the book that we got to spend the most time with the Guardian, and I appreciated that a lot because I felt like in other books the Guardian was there and then they were defeated and then the book was over. Number 7, like half the book we spend with the Guardian, and definitely the most fleshed out of them, and the revelations about his character were really, really cool. So I like that, and the puzzle aspect. That's another thing that these books do great. A lot of puzzles, a lot of thinking. I like that a lot, and the puzzles in number 7 were really cool. And then my favorite is, of course, number 8, The Return to Del, because that's the wrap-up. You get all the payoff, all the character development comes to a head, the epic conclusion, and that one was definitely by far my favorite. So, super excited. Once again, there, Deltora Quest. Read it if you're an adult, if you're a kid, if you have kids, they're looking for fun fantasy. Amazing series. I'll definitely be reading Deltora Quest 2 and 3 shortly down the line. I've added them to my Amazon cart because that's the only place I can find them. Okay, so then I'm going to try to go a little faster now. Book 3 I've read this month, Midnight Horizon, Star Wars, High Republic. This is the conclusion to Phase 1, I'm pretty sure. I thought The Fallen Star was, and I realized I was wrong, and it was actually this book. So I think this time I'm right that this is the conclusion. Oh, what do I say? I like this book. I liked it. And it's funny because when you look on Goodreads, this is if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the lowest rated High Republic book in phases 1 and 2. I'm not 100% sure than that. Some of the middle grade novels might be ranked a little bit less. But as far as the YA and the adult novels go, I think this is not lowest ranked. I can see why. But at the same time, I liked it a lot. So yes, some of the language is a little weird in it. It doesn't feel very Star Wars-y. But the character development, for me, the characters are the most important part. And I really like the characters in this book. Most importantly, I like Reith Silas a lot. He is probably my favorite. Not my favorite, but definitely top 3 favorites of the High Republic when it comes to like the Jedis. I like his character a lot and the conflict that he goes through. This whole, he wants to be a library guy, but he keeps getting put on these field missions, and now there's a war going on, and he never saw himself in this situation, and he doesn't know if he's ever going to find himself. All of that I enjoy quite a bit. And his master, Comac, I like his character a lot. He has a lot of development and trauma, and all of the characters in this book have a lot of development, and I appreciate that a lot, and it made me connect to them quite a bit. And for that reason, I ended up giving Midnight Horizon a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads because I felt like it earned it. The part that I didn't like was towards the end, and this is a common gripe I have with a lot of Star Wars novels, and it might be silly to some people, but because it's called Star Wars, right? Wars, battles, stuff like that. But some of the battles in these books, I just feel like they last too long, and that was a section of this book that I didn't like as much. Was the battle sequence at the end started to lose me. I was like, all right, let's wrap this up. There's a lot going on. Sometimes I was even losing track of where characters were. It's like a good, not half of the book, but it's like a good, like maybe the last third. So I wish that had wrapped up a little quicker, because the first half of the book was definitely just character development, characters. I loved it. And then it just ended with big battle stuff, exploding, flying around, all that stuff. I had the same issue with. I'm trying to look at my shelf right now. I can't. It was the last one. I think Path of Vengeance in Phase 2. That book, great at the beginning, and then it ended with this massive, like half of the book long battle. And I wish there had been a shorter battle, because it started to lose my attention a little bit towards the end. But Midnight Horizon, if you're a Star Wars fan, if you like the High Republic, I thought it was a good book. I've heard some people say that they didn't like it. I totally understand where they're coming from if they say this is one of their least favorites. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. All right, here we go. Now we're gonna come. So pretty proud of myself, right? I've read 3 books this month, which for me is not bad. Some of them are a little bigger. Now I'm going to the book that I'm reading right now. I started it just 2 days ago. Let's see. It is May 22nd. Yeah, so May 20th. I started Sisterhood of Dune. I'm about like a third. No, not a third. Like a fourth of the way through it right there. You can see my bookmark. Yeah, Sisterhood of Dune. I'm reading this right now. One of the Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson books. So far, I'm really enjoying it. So obviously, I know there's a big discourse in the community about the Kevin J. Anderson, Brian Herbert, and the Frank Herbert stuff. Kind of mentioned it in my last video, how, like, yes, the Frank Herbert stuff up here, like way up here, Brian Herbert stuff down here a little bit more. Not nearly on the same quality of writing if you're looking for that, like, that philosophical speech that Frank Herbert includes in his writing. But I still enjoy the Brian Herbert stuff a lot, mainly because I love the world of Dune. I love the lore. I love learning more about it. I just like being in that world. And they're fun, like, shut off your brain sci-fi action adventure books. And for that reason, I plan on reading all the Brian Herbert stuff, and I am thoroughly enjoying them. So I actually have here the first trilogy, canonically, the Legends of Dune trilogy. You got the let's see, the Butlerian Jihad. Nope, that's this one right there. You got the Machine Crusade right here. Then you got the Battle of Corrin, which I finished in like February of this year. And something I didn't realize is that I don't really look up ahead of time what books are about. I didn't realize that Sisterhood of Dune ties into these books a lot. Like, very much so. There's a lot of carryover when it comes to characters. And, you know, when I read the Legends of Dune trilogy, I think they got progressively worse. When I was reading the Butlerian Jihad, I was in. I loved it. I was like, this is so cool. We're learning about the thinking machines and the war and the battles between the humans. And then, you know, Machine Crusade I thought was good, was fun. Battle of Corrin, I was still like, yeah, this is good fun. But I progressively enjoyed them less, and mainly because, like, look at this. This is a lot of pages right here. I feel like this trilogy could have probably been condensed into a single book. That's my thought on it. There are so many plot lines going in all different directions, and I feel like a lot of it could have been cut out, and I think that this trilogy could have been condensed into just a single book, and it probably would have read a lot better and kept my interest for longer. But overall, I would give a positive review. The thing that I'm happy about with Sisterhood of Dune is that there's so much carryover, and I found myself surprised at how excited I was to revisit some of these characters. I didn't expect there to be really any carryover at all. I didn't realize it took place less than 100 years after the Battle of Corrin. So when I saw that, like, Vorian Atreides was in here, you know, you got, like, the Carrinos obviously go on for a long time, but you have, like, the very close descendants of those characters, Valia Harkonnen, who's, like, very closely descended to Abelard Harkonnen, and she's still fresh with the betrayal that Vorian Atreides cast upon their family. Just had me really excited, you know. I felt the same way starting this book as I did when I started the Butlerian Jihad, where I was like, cool, this is fresh, like, I'm back in Dune, a new story, I'm excited, and so far, I'm just enjoying it a lot. I won't go too much more into that because I'm still reading it, but yeah, I like that a lot. And I'll tell you, I liked it so much, starting reading it, my first 100 pages or so, that I actually went to Books A Million yesterday. I don't have a local bookstore. I only have Books A Million, but I went and got Mentats and Navigators of Dune, which are the second and third books in the Schools trilogy. Um, so very excited. I'm probably going to read these shortly after I finish Sisterhood of Dune, if I know myself. They're gonna skip ahead in the TBR a little bit if I continue to enjoy the story as much as I did. But yeah, I went and bought those because I was enjoying Sisterhood so much. I was like, yeah, so probably should go get the other ones. And that's it. That's what I'm reading right now. So that means, based on last week's video, I still have to read The Well of Ascension and Wings and Ruin in May if I'm going to hit my goal. I'm going to try. It might not. Probably one or maybe 1.5 of those is going to carry over into June. So, but we'll see. And then the last thing is I went to BAM and I got Stephen King, You Like It Darker. I just wanted to show. I probably won't do a lot of book haul videos because one, I don't have too much extra money to spend on books right now. And also I don't really do book hauls because I went a little overboard when I got back into reading. I bought a lot of books, and now I'm trying to catch up and read more of them before I keep buying them. So I'm trying to be very, very frugal with the amount of books I buy. Keep it to like just a couple a month, maybe. But I saw this. You can see the little discount tag right here for $10 in the discount section at Books A Million. So definitely had to pick that up because Stephen King is one of my main reading journeys as well that I'm trying to accomplish. But yeah, so I had just a little mini book haul. Got my Dune books, got my Stephen King books there. Yeah, there they are. There they are. Cool. So just kind of a little glimpse into my book haul for this month, the books I got. But that's it. I don't really have anything else more to talk about. So thanks for joining me. I will probably make another video in about 2 weeks. I don't think I read fast enough currently to do weekly videos. There's not enough to update on. So in like 2 weeks, I'll try to make another video, show you if I ended up meeting my May goals and kind of doing my TBR for the month of June and doing a little recap on some of the other reviews I have if I finish Sisterhood and Well of Ascension and all that. But thanks for watching and appreciate it. I'm going to try to turn off my camera on my first try this time. Let's see if it works. See ya.